Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the premiere episode of the Behind the Screens podcast brought to you by DSQ. And I'll start things off. We've got two excellent guests here, which makes the job a little bit harder in the future because I don't really know how we can top this. I'm going to introduce them pretty short and sweet, but honestly, their list of accolades is high. And I'm going to start off by calling them the faces of the European grassroots scene. Yes, sir. I'm joined today with Archaon and Mutschuk. Archaon, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's been a long day. Had an A level exam and then came to set up for this. So it's a nice way to wind down the day certainly. And it's good that I can spend it with you two. How are you doing today, Mutz?
Doing good, doing good. I've been at work today and just chilling since most of ERSC is finished and only a few last events are left.
Yeah, of course, you two are owners of the ERSC, soon to be just the RSC, I do believe. But this is, well, in my opinion, probably the biggest grassroots competition that's open to the community, certainly in Europe. And of course, I'm a part of that, both as a player and a caster. One of them I'm way better at than the other one, but I'll let you decide which one that is. Archaon, you're typically seen as Mr. RSC, and I think it's fair to say that Mutschuk is seen as more Mr. ERS, and this was a partnership that came together. But what is it like owning such a big tournament here in Europe?
It's a bit weird, really, because I didn't own it up until about a year and a half ago. So, it only came into my possession once Frizz left the scene. I won't go too much into that. Yeah. But yeah, I started around 4 years ago now. And I only applied as an admin to get 6-man's privileges. That's all I used to main in RSC, and I enjoyed it. And I was battling anxiety and depression at the time, so I was like always wanting to play 6-mans with the community. Just thought, oh, I'll apply for it. Didn't have a clue what I was getting into, and I got the position, and I've never looked back since. Like I grew the server tenfold. Aspired to be like Mutschuk's league, and we ended up getting to that standard and more. So obviously it's been a long ride, but I'm glad I'm in the position I am now and seeing how much RSC and the RS has thrived.
Yeah, they are doing excellently at the moment, and it just seems to be growing as well, which I do like. I think there are big improvements. Of course, there is the big merger upcoming, almost like the second big stage of a merger, actually, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But Mutz, what was it like being the inspiration for Archaon, and how did you get yourself into tournament organizing?
I mean, it's really it's big to say the least, because at the end of the day, Arch has expanded RSC in such a big fashion in such a short period of time as well, that it is really inspiring. I got myself into this about in a month, approximately. No, wait, in 2 months approximately. It's going to be 6 years.
Wow.
So I started out as just a staff member. I was interested in the stat side of things. Then from there on, I took always bigger and bigger roles until 2021, I believe, or during the pandemic. I took over from Teuton, back then so-called Brightest, the league, and I have been owner with a bit of a stop ever since. And that's how I got in my position. So basically, both of us were not the original founders of the league, but we both have worked our butts off to get it to where it is now, or both of them are where it is now.
What we do have in common, though, is we've both had 6 and 4 years of no sleep. So
Yes. Yes.
I mean, so much goes into the background of running these tournaments. Of course, as a member of the staff, you can see all the committees, and you've got people that work on websites, constantly making Google Sheets. You run admin elections, and you've just got so many people to manage. What can you say people don't see behind the scenes for running a tournament like this? Because of course you say, 4 to 6 years of almost no sleep, but for the average person joining, it's just they're here, they're gonna play some games of Rocket League, maybe they'll get streamed and they get home, but actually you do a lot to make this happen for people and make that job easier. Art, can you expand on that?
yeah, that's one thing I kind of wish that people had more awareness of, and we can't really show what goes into it. That, like you said, the staff teams, I've really prided myself on the fact that RSC has had a massive staff team, and which is why we were able to come in and save the ERS from folding a couple of years ago. Because I had at one point like up to 100 staff in all the committees that we had. Like you said, we had loads at one point. We have divulged that into like merging a couple of committees now, so that we haven't got as many people just sitting back, relaxing, and not doing much. So that it's all spearheaded into like one or two committees. But yeah, we work in all season round, and people think we have an off season, but we generally don't. Like the season finished last week, and we're still looking at award ceremonies, picking the players who have done the best this season, planning RSC for next season. I've got to like revamp all the graphics and the streams for next season. If we do go for a new background and layout and stuff, new intro videos. The list is endless, and obviously we have the monthly tournaments as well. We have giveaways. We're in talks with companies to try and look for sponsorships. It's a lot of work at the end of the day, and it's something that people don't see.
Well, you said the word sponsorships, and from what I've heard, that's not something that comes easy, especially in the world of esports. And what is that like trying to chase sponsorships for a community Rocket League? I mean, everyone is volunteer, of course, that is working in the staff team, and I think that is something that makes it so special. But to get place to play, you have actually racked up quite a sizable prize pool, and with these monthlies as well, there's also more money that goes into it, and well, I know that some money's been put into it that puts you guys at a loss. But how difficult is it to try and get those sponsors to support you guys?
It's very difficult. I mean, that's the whole reason for the last merge. Obviously, we merged 2 years ago to say that we'd come in, be the RSC, but it was never really a full merge, and we've only ever had Rule 1 since then. Mutschuk did help me massively to get that as well. But outside of that, every other sponsorship has been myself, and I don't really think about it. But the pressure of having
Mm.
to get that money to carry on running the leagues, like I've never really thought about it because I've been so successful at pulling these things in. But if I fail at least one time, I've failed the league and we can't have a sponsorship for a season or a prize pool. And if you think about it, if I don't get something next year, that's so much pressure to have on one person. And that's the whole reason for the merge is
Mhm.
because ERS hasn't pulled in sponsorships and donations, etc., for the last 2 years. So it's got to a point where 6 months out of RSC was the crowning thing really to find money. We've been absent on socials. I've posted as much as I can, but there's only so much you can do when a league's not running. Twitch isn't running, so we're not getting subscription money. So at the end of the day, it just helps everyone on board to merge into one so that people like Mutschuk, Andre, Friday and stuff can help me out and take that pressure off me as well. And we can show off our full statistics when RSC is fully going with the server numbers, with the socials, the interactions, and the Twitch viewers, etc. And all of that is year round. So yeah, it's the best decision in all to go forward for that, especially on a sponsorship side. Because at the end of the day, everything's data with companies. They want to see how you're performing.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when I saw that the RSC merger was coming. It was definitely something that I felt was going to happen eventually. It just made more sense. I mean, with how memberships work on Twitch, especially, a monthly subscription, no one's going to pay for it if a league is inactive in 6 months and you have to flip flop between socials. But Mutz, obviously, you're the ERS is a name now, which in a way does kind of fall to history with RSC taking it over. Is there, any kinds of feelings of that for you, being that, that was your league, that was you getting partnered, and even though it still exists, you no longer have the names or the overlays, and has that been some kind of feeling for you?
I mean, it's basically what I have helped build pull up from the grounds up until this point, where it was basically just 4 people running it due
Mhm.
to various reasons. And at the end of the day, it is a great piece of history.
Mhm.
I can confidently say we have provided a base for people to start grinding competitively. We have provided people with with opportunities in not only in Rocket League, but also in Rocket League as a player, but also in Rocket League as casting talent, as well as also what I am quite proud of is actually giving people recommendation letters for IRL jobs, and also people who have found friends within the league. So I'm proud what the brand itself has accomplished, but it's at the end of the day, the I would say only good wishes doesn't fund the league. That's the sad reality of it. And
Mhm.
going with the currently stronger brand was just the right move to do, even though it hurts at the moment. It is just better for both leagues long term.
Yeah, I managed to cast the final ever series that ERS will play in terms of a league standpoint, being the Master Tier Grand Finals, and that was a great honor to be able to cast, to be a part of that history. And there are going to be so many people who, of course, do remember ERS, and it will always be mentioned at ERS. I think, I mean RSC pre-built or whatever they're going to call it in the future.
We need
People
a
will
better
refer
name.
back. I yeah, I'm sure that name will come, but you've got what, over half a year to decide that now, at this
Yeah,
point, because, well, at least on the current schedule, it looks like first half of the year is going to be that pre-built, and second half of the year is going to be draft. Well, currently that's how it stands. I don't know future plans, and I know how quick things move, certainly in esports. But the opportunities that ERSC has brought as well, including, of course, ERS specifically, has given so many people opportunities. I mean, I can say myself that ERSC just as a whole has been absolutely huge for me. It's, of course, where I made my start as a caster, and now I'm here hosting a podcast, talking to those same people who helped make that happen, of course. And Archaon actually did write part of my CV, yeah, in a reference, to be clear. So ERSC, it's been absolutely huge, and just like you said, of course, you do end up being able to create so many opportunities and friendships and the like, but also, like Arkel mentioned, there's quite a lot of pressure that comes with that, especially with you two being the faces of it all. And what is that like to be in that position where basically all the eyes are on you?
Well, just going back to what Mutschuk was saying, it was one of the first things that we discussed. Like, if someone told me that I want you to close your league, I'd have so much heartache about it. Like,
Mhm.
and the good thing with Mutz is that he looked at it from a business perspective. Like, if Mutschuk did that to me and said, "Oh, I want to close RSC down," like I'd have the same feelings as he's pointed out. But the fact is, you need a brand, you need something that's pulling in money, and unfortunately, that was RSC that's been pulling in the sponsorships over the last 3 years. So, um, a huge kudos to Mutschuk for agreeing to do this in the first place, because like you said, it's 6 years of history. And I just said it's not the end of a journey, it's one that's forging into a partnership, into a new one. So we've got a lot more memories to make, and hopefully we're pulling some more money for the next few years to come. But in regards to pressure of being the face, I think we've just got used to it, haven't we, Mutschuk? I mean, like you said, it's 10 years combined of experience. We've only had successes as well. I mean, look how much money RSC gave away last year. It was £10,300 or something. And that's to the grassroots and the bubble scene, including all the monthly tournaments, the weeklies that we found, all the mini events that we had. That's the most amount of money we've ever given away, but it's also not sustainable. So I think our perspective has changed a lot, and that's where the pressures come from this year, is that esports has been failing. Esports hasn't been getting the investment it needs, or they've been overpaying, especially in the pro scene. So the fact is, we've now had to go from wanting to be that feeder lead for our RLCS and higher tournaments, and just think, how do we continue the grassroots scene? And that's by going to £1,000 per year, pretty much, and stop throwing away money where we can.
I do not envy your position. That sounds extremely difficult to manage, and it is such a huge audience. There is just so much on the line there. But one thing that I just have to ask is, especially with it being esports, and especially with it being Rocket League, what is it like handling a community that, let's just say, the ages can range very, very low, and I can imagine with those being a lot of times the people that can give you scrutiny. How difficult is that to manage? And Mitz, I see you laughing, so I wonder if you have an answer.
I'll let Mutschuk start, because I just need the Jose Mourinho gif at this point.
I think that we both need those, because we both had our fair share of stories that I would say we do not want to burden people with, because if we speak, we are in big trouble.
To be fair, like, there are problematic people, and there's been incidents. There's one incident that's made it as far as the police, and someone's had to not contact me for 6 months. That's how far it can get, and that is pretty much the tail end of it. But dealing with teenagers and watching, the good part of it is watching them grow. I mean, just for one example, is Potter. We gave Potter GM at 14 years old. He was one of the most mature youngsters we've met in this league. And I met him the other day. Now he's turned 18 at the darts, having his first drinks and all that lot. And to see someone grow for like 4 years, seeing how he's grown into this mature college student who helped us do work experience at the ERSC land, at Red Bull. I signed off on his work experience with his college the other day. It's like, to be able to participate in a young person's life like that, and to help them grow, and like obviously get into the scene that he has now. Obviously, he's been in RLCS talent, production, casting, helping at his college now with work experience. They're the good success stories. And obviously you've got your other success stories, Mutschuk, of like your Joyos and stuff making RLCS as well. And obviously Juicy winning as well.
Yeah, there is a lot of people that we could highlight positively and negatively. Like there are people we also had a case that went to the police before the merger as well, with something related to a server, and I'm also not gonna get into that specifically, but you also have had people, like, for example, that have played in the league, even if with brief stints, like Joyo, Cash, Noah, who is the coach of Moist, Spectre, who is now more known as Simas. Like, there is so many people from early seasons that I could spend some time listing them, as well as people who have found jobs. Like, I have to remember, but I think it was one from the Azteca people that offered another one. I think it was Robin offering Hypnos a job. Was it that?
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. So people who got to know each other in the league are now working together in jobs. There is so many memories that have been made, especially also then meeting people at LANs. It is amazing.
You spoke about those success stories, especially Samas, which is a recent one, of course. What is it like watching those kinds of people playing at the big stage and knowing that they started with something that you produced?
It is sometimes very very fun. It is really not enlightening, a heightening experience to see how they perform, and also very funny. Sometimes you remember back them arguing with you as well on certain things.
Yeah, for me, I was in the crowd at Copenhagen, and I had so much like feelings of proudness for Juicy. I don't want to jump on the bandwagon and say that we produced him because it's far from it. He came in and played Premier, but that's the sort of stepping stone that we wanted to be. No one really knew of him back then. He was an up and coming bubble player. He came in, won the league with Sistema Solaris, I think it was. That was back in season 9 or 10, I think. And then he's gone on to be the kind of fall guy at Moist. I think a lot of people blame Joyo not making events because of Juicy. And to be fair, I was one myself. I said Juicy doesn't look ready. He looked like he was shy. He didn't know how to come out of his comfort zone. He was nervy on defense. I think that was back in I think that was a year ago or something, maybe in Dusseldorf.
About a year ago.
Yeah. But then being in Copenhagen and just seeing how Gentlemates played, it's just like if you find the right team and the right players around you, something special can happen. And Juicy was immense in that tournament. I mean, he got MVP
Mhm.
2 minutes after winning. Like that's just how good he was, and I felt so proud to say that this is one of our ex players in the league.
I got the pleasure of actually casting Gentlemates twice when I was representing Team Hosky during that first split. And of course, there are players that have played for Team Hosky
Yeah.
as a part of RSC that have gone on to do great things. I just wanted to mention Lamasia's Smashy and Alems, of course, making a qualifier. But Juicy, you saw that team. It was Juicy, Seiko, and Itachi. And my introduction was one's a world champion, one's a LAN champion, and Juicy. And then when I was watching those series, of course, I was supporting Team Hosky. Juicy just seemed unstoppable. He was just doing things that I had never seen before, and I felt so lucky to just sit in the server and watch as every time the ball went to the back wall, he was just so composed, bringing it forward. That was incredible, and obviously knowing that he participated in the likes of a grassroots league that I played in, it's just insane to think about. And also, I think back to recently at Rukia making a main event, and people were
Yeah.
saying very recently he
True.
was playing in Challenger.
I've been seeing the tweets recently of how much he actually gets from that, and it looks like he's had to
Oh,
fight his
I
corner. But I
I
think
have.
he's got there. I think he's got it. But yeah, like you said with Juicy, he was the fall guy on Moist, and
Mhm.
just look at Joyo now. He's changed teams. He's found the right teammates. He's found the right players to play with, and he's back in main events again, and probably at the major. So it's like I said, Juicy's found the team that works with him, and he's thriving from it. And I'm just glad that we could have been that part of the journey as well back in the day.
Well, you both clearly have a passion for Rocket League as an esports, of course, owning the big grassroots tournaments now, I guess, and having all this knowledge as well in the current affairs in the leagues. What actually got you to this point? That's what got you to being so involved with esports. Where did that all begin?
I mean, basically for me, it started with Rocket League just being a game I found. Then I got introduced to the car design community because that was basically my introduction. From there, growing that particular part of the community with probably now not more that known person called Moss, who used to be the host for Pimp My Rocket League, right? Back in the day. Yeah, alongside John Sandman. Then after that, I moved to the ERS after my best friend at the time had outgrown me quite a bit since, yeah, I am still a Heartstock champion, and he went on to greater rank levels. So just by pure coincidence, I joined on the first day when ERS, or at the time ERLS, was made. And from there on out, I have basically grown along with the community, because that is the main drive that has kept me in esports.
And same question for you, Archaon. How did you get to this point? What got you into esports and now being this invested?
I actually hated Rocket League when I first started.
Oh.
I was so bad. I was pretty much silver or gold. I couldn't use ball cam. I used to guess where the ball was landing. All my mates were better than me, so I'm really competitive on games. So if I'm rubbish at one, I'll just put it down straight away. And I did that for about 6 months to a year. My mates were grinding it, and I just didn't like it. I was playing 2v2 private matches with them. I'd always lose. So I kind of got into a card game initially called Age of Sigmar Champions, and I was top 10 in the world at it. I had a contract with Oxygen Esports. The problem is that the directors of the game didn't really know how to run it properly. So they announced a world tournament in the middle of a desert in US and wondered why only 4 people turned up. So that kind of got scrapped, and so I was touring the country, finishing top 4 in events just to win cards that I already owned. So I pretty much like tripled my card collection, and then ended up having to sell them for nothing because the game died. So I was pretty gutted. There is still a video on my YouTube of me like absolutely annihilating a person 3-0 on that game within 15 minutes. I just used the most gory bloody burn decks to beat him. It was just a whitewash. But then I kind of found Rocket League again. I started grinding, and I became better than my mates at it. Granted, they like had kids and work to like sort of deal with. So did I as well. But I was just grinding it a lot more than they were. So I kind of reached GC and GC rewards first. And then I just got into it from there. I started looking at leagues to join. I found RSC and I'd signed up to the draft, but like I said earlier, I was going through anxiety and depression at the time. I was on really bad medication, like the highest dose of medication for depression and stuff. I always had bad thoughts about myself, so I didn't really want to interact with people. So when I signed up for the draft, then I noticed I had to compete with like 5 or 6 people. Like a couple of those names were as well Bob, Vector, Ares, and all these people were like elite and master players at one point. So it was like, oh, I'll do the best thing for the team and just resign my sign up. I didn't really do anything. So that was RSC season 3. So I just stayed silent in the server for a while. So I found the RS IEL back then, and I think they were in season 6 at the time. And I loved it. And sorry, season 5, I think, because I joined midway through when Jacket Potato was a GM. And Jacket was
on Lance Gaming,
yeah, Jacket was a really nice lad. He got me a sub spot, but I ended up playing the last few series because they needed the sub to play. And I made friends with some like Welsh streamer. So I got really into it. I started making friends with I think, what was his name? Was it Tails who was elated GM?
That was Tails.
Yeah, I started talking to Tails, bought some elated merch. So I signed up for IEL season 6, and I ended up getting moved because I was too good for the tier that I was in. Or they found a different peak from my PlayStation account. I never hid anything back then. Like I just signed up with an account, and I think they missed my peak, so they put me in academy with Tuton, and we were dominating everyone, so they moved me up. So I had to play Prospect, I think, with Caldi and Sam. And we ended up finishing mid-table as like 3 promoted players from the tier below, which I thought was pretty decent because we were in Challenger.
Yeah, Challenger from Prospect because Academy didn't exist back then.
Yeah. So I enjoyed IEL. IEL was peak back then. Like streams were popping. The casters standard was so good. Like we had Tofu Elliott, Astral, Sunderlad producing. I don't think you put on a stream if you had casters that brought the standard down as well at that point.
Yep. It was that highly competitive in that regard as well, and in stuff.
So that's kind of what made me inspire stuff for RSC, was seeing how well it run this was. So then I finally joined RSC's draft for season 4, and I got drafted. I got in the team with Asterix, Stenos, and some Greek lad that I can't remember his name now. But we kind of drew every single game, and then we finally lost one against one of the top rivals. So I just thought, you know what, this team isn't it. I knew I didn't have an ego, but I kind of knew I was better than that team. Just comms weren't working and stuff like that. So I ended up getting brought into this really OP team of Shires and Dark in Rival. I don't know how all of us fit. We were like 3 of the top players. And we just went on a mad tear on the second half of the season and won the league. So I won the league in my first season of RSC.
Wow.
And then they had admin elections straight after that. So I just thought, you know what, why not? Like I said, didn't have any clue about what I was getting into. I didn't have a clue how to run a league. I just learned very, very quickly. And like I said, IEL was kind of the premise that we had to use to improve, because all our streams were like manual inputs back then. Like because our streams were non-existent and all they did was play Rocket League with no overlay, I kind of made OBS, but I put text boxes, I made stat screens, but I didn't have Photoshop experience. So me and my streamers were editing stuff via text boxes per stream. Took a long time, but it improved the quality for what it was back then. Like, just imagine 4 years ago, you don't have these overlays or anything. So yeah, that's kind of what got me into it. And like I said, I really thank IEL for the background that I've been able to base this on. Otherwise, RSC wouldn't be where it is today.
Wow. Sound like your journey had quite a big ramp up right towards the end there. You won a championship, decided I'm the top of the world, I own this league, and then 5 seconds later, no, you actually owned this league now. You got yourself in the admin team spot, and
to be
well,
fair, I didn't expect to
done a
get
great job.
voted. Like I said, I only applied for 6 man's privileges. It was Sato and Frizzle as admins at the time, and I think people just took a chance on me because of how I spoke, how old I was, and to be honest, not many other people being votable. Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember who was up against me, but yeah, like I said, it got me where I am today, so I'm happy. But it really helped me come out of my shell because, like I said, I went through a lot of anxiety and depression back then, and kept myself to myself and bottled everything up. And once I got speaking to people, I was pretty open about my struggles and stuff, and it helped me a lot. And I no longer take meds or anything. So,
would you say that esports then, and well, especially the league, helped you with those kind of mental health problems?
yes, definitely. But I'd also say it's contributed slightly to it as well, especially with stuff going to the police and the tail end of stuff. Like I'm talking like the major things, like stuff that people take to social media for no reason, and then you've got to come out with statements and stuff like that. I can't stand any of that. That puts so much unneeded pressure on people. We're here to have fun and run a community league at the end of the day.
One thing I definitely struggle with as a part of esports, and now someone who kind of has a semi-career in it as a caster, is other people looking in that aren't involved at all, family members,
Yeah.
parents, grandparents, explaining to them what esports is, and initially explaining to Mama Pigasus why I couldn't come down to dinner because I was either playing a match or I was shouting about other people playing a match, that kind of thing. I definitely found a bit difficult at the beginning, but I was blessed to have family that understood that. What is it like for you guys who dedicate so much time, even money into these community tournaments for something that is esports? Is that ever something that's come up between you and other people in your life?
With my friends, I have shared most of it, basically. With my family, not so much. I would say, since it's a more traditional family, so the understanding is relatively limited. That's my experience with it. So not great, but also not terrible.
And
Yeah,
Archaon, you've obviously got a wife and a kid as well, so I can imagine all of that is quite hard to juggle
Yeah,
at times.
regarding like friends and new people that I meet, I try and tell them like about the leagues and like what I run and how it's like at the forefront of grassroots, and they're just like, "What? What's Rocket League? What's that?" So yeah, it's hard to explain to people. I'll admit I was pretty stupid a couple of months ago, like not putting as much time as I should into my like girlfriend and kids. Like I've let this league consume me a bit too much at times, and that's why I've gone on the drive that I have currently with the 5 months out and trying to lose weight and be a better dad and like pay attention to more people. Like because this league has took over mine and Mutschuk's lives, and I think we have got a bit too invested. And at the end of the day, I think we need to step back a little bit and like watch other people try and run stuff as well. Not saying like let all the admins do everything. I know I've done that this season, but I told them I needed time out. I had a really bad year last year. And like I said, I know how to manage my time better now, and I'm only putting a couple of hours per week maybe into this now. Whereas it used to be like 16 hours a day, and people say you can't put that much time into a league. Try running it.
Yeah,
And
that is
yeah,
something people don't understand that easily, because there is a reason people called me at one point in RL like a local walking zombie, because that week I have put, without a joke, 140 hours in.
Oof.
Yes,
Wow.
I slept basically 2 hours a day and 12 hours on Sunday.
Bearing in
That's
mind when Mutschuk came to London, he's not lying. He looked like a zombie. I literally said to him that was the time that they only had 3 staff in ERS. Well, it was IEL then. We needed to rebrand, but they only had 3 staff, and Mutschuk was pulling all nighters. And I just said, "Look, I'm going to help you save it." And like his health is so much better now. I've met him a couple of times since, and yeah, the improvement's massive. Like you can't sustainably run a league with 3 people.
especially if the
Yeah.
size and complexity, especially because what people really estimate is what time goes into the backend, especially now with all the people we have around. Andre, Friday, Mel, without these people, as well as Nelek, like the automation that we have at this point, and was always a strong suit of IL, because otherwise it would really have been putting me far down to the deep end, because we had automation at this point. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible. So also thanks to these people, it is still possible to run and have a life.
That's why the merger was beneficial for both worlds as well, because the problem with RSC was the fact it was so manual, and that's why I put so many hours into the league. Like because we didn't have what we have in the back end now, and obviously IEL was great on automation, but it was kind of losing its touch with the players, and it needed something doing to it regarding communication, clarity, stuff like that. And that's what I think what RSC has brought with the staff team to them. So like I said, everything's just a lot smoother now and has helped our personal lives a lot more.
What do you think is the big difference with the likes of ERSC? What differentiates it from a lot of the other tournaments that, especially now, I'm starting to see come more into popularity and ones that have been popular and fallen?
Honesty, clarity, being a presence and constantly communicating what we're doing. I mean, there's also the fact that esports isn't regulated, which I hate. It needs something. People talk about football needing an independent regulator. Get one in esports, because the amount of people who take money off people or steal it or like don't like overinvest and go bust, like the amount of orgs that have fallen from esports, and they wonder why they can't get any money in this year, because where does the money go? So I think RSC has always, and obviously IEL, ERS, has always been accountable for everything it does.
Yeah, that's been something that I've definitely noticed with this league compared to others. I do think the communication is genuinely a lot better than other leagues. I think also the big staff team that it has been able to bring together as well has been nothing short of incredible. And I liked what you were talking about before with you having all the OBS text boxes as your makeshift overlay. And actually, the overlay and all the bot stuff was definitely one of the things that really got me into ERS and RSC. There's just something about it. It's got an aura of professionalism that I don't think many other leagues quite have yet. And I'm curious if a tournament organizer was to come up to you and ask for one piece of advice, what would each of you give them?
Just try and do it yourself.
Mm.
That's all I can say, because they have come into my DMs and said, Arch, I need help with a league. Well, go and do it. Like, you don't need me to tell you what to do. I didn't know what I was doing when I was admin. It's just learning. And like you said at the start of this podcast, we're at the forefront of grassroots Rocket League, and that's only because I learned it so quickly. And Mutz had it put into his hands off tutoring as well. He didn't have experience. He just got asked to run a league.
Yeah. So basically, it was a running joke at the end that basically all the management was put into their position just out of necessity, and then they excelled at it. It's like, that is also, we just grow and learn. It's like, one of the things you said about professionalism is also with our rulebook. People complain about the length, but there is a reason, for example, why it's so long, because there were instances we needed those rules. And it changes every season, that something comes up that we have to slightly adjust things. It is just the nature of how the game changes, how the league changes, how people view the game. Basically, try it. And this is some piece of advice that I've gotten, is basically just try it. Try it for 3 months, see if you have made progress. If not, it's maybe not for you. If you did, go on. Because what do you have to lose?
2 more pieces of advice. Don't put kids in charge.
True.
Serious.
True that.
Don't put kids in charge. Kids running stuff in esports is a joke. And 3, sell your brand. Be confident about it. Gather data. Gather statistics.
True.
Put it all together and collate it, and then send it out there. You're after money, or you're after promoting your league. Be confident about it. RSC had no partners when I came in. I had to revamp everything from the bottom, like finding Discord partners, making relationships with IEL to promote into their Discord. We had nothing at that point, and they were the biggest league in Europe. How did we go from an 89 player league to overtaking a league that had like 4,000 members when we first started? It's like, just learn, grow, and sell your brand, and don't put kids in charge.
I love that clarification of not putting kids in charge.
I see it too often. I hate it, mate.
And well, it's so much easier for children to actually get involved with Rocket League specifically, with them bringing the age down and stuff. How active are you two actually in, RLCS stuff in general? I know, Archaon, you tend to try and go to the lands when you can. It actually sounds like you're pretty brushed up. I'm wondering, Mutz, how active you are with all of that.
I'm also more into the community side, so I actively look to go at lands. I do admit I do not follow regularly, but I keep, especially with all the roster changes, but I keep up with the results, so I at least know in discussions where the direction is headed.
Yeah, I'm the same. I can't pay attention to stuff anymore. I think there's too many events. There's too many days it's streamed. Some people probably love it, and I do agree it gives the bubble scene the best chance of trying to qualify, and I get that. That's all I've ever wanted. But for me, nostalgia is league play with 10 franchises playing once a week. I'd be on holiday in Tenerife and I'd be watching it on Twitch. Like I was that much of a fan of RLCS. But now I'm like Mutschuk. I'll pay attention to roster changes, rumors, who's won in the regionals or who's top 8 or whatever. And I'll go to lands and stuff if I can. I only recently started going 2 years ago since London. So I was supposed to go to the first London, but like I said, I went through depression and stuff, so I missed it. But yeah, I just enjoy Rocket League live. So if I can get to a LAN, I will. But I can't follow it week in, week out anymore. I think there's too many events.
Part of me do miss it as part of the league play. I do definitely think the Open Era was probably better just in terms of competitive integrity and trying to keep the best players at the top for as long as possible. Although I definitely have a bit of questioning with how they handle the qualifications, but overall, I think it is 99% better. But I do miss back when you would watch an RLCS league play stream and it'd be next Saturday, tune in, it's going to be NRG versus Cloud9, this team versus this team, and this team versus this team. You'd show up just for those 3 teams. They would have a big pre-show, and it did feel like traditional sports, but obviously esports isn't quite traditional sports.
I think if you asked organizations that now, I think they'd love that security, because look at Carmine Corp.
Yeah, that's what I think recently.
For me, I would be best like a combination. So basically, league play for the previously best performing teams, but then also an open qualifier where teams can actually compete for spots in the top table for next season. So it is still enterable for the top teams, but then also have some consistency for orgs, because it is nice, and also it's especially as an org owner with Shadow, I feel like it is so much better to know that you can consistently give opportunities to your brand and expand it, because that builds community, that builds the togetherness that makes the esports so great, because everyone play or like football clubs so great. It's like it's community and everyone cheers for the same team basically.
The thing is, for me, like I said about nostalgia, like league play, I just wish there was something within esports, because there's enough money from the people who are providing it at the top. Like, I'm not saying it filters down a lot. Like, I'm saying Epic and Psyonix could probably afford it. But why isn't there just like a pyramid of league tables, like the English football system? Why isn't there like a Premier League, a Championship, Division 1, Division 2, National League North. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could have all these orgs in, getting a percentage of the money, playing week in, week out, and then going into a filtered tournament for the top whatever promotion relegation. I'd love to see something like that, but it'll never happen.
Yeah, that I think, especially with esports, it is so difficult to do because it is so fast moving. Because when you look at the likes of traditional sports, and it is, well, you compared it to football, that's 11v11. You know, a professional player stays professional for many years. Transfer market is so open, whereas in Rocket League, it is 3v3 at the highest level. And they've had to make it now that you have to have two of the remaining roster to keep all your RLCS points. So if you actually make too many transfer changes, that counts as a completely different team, and roster changes happen so much. People get better and worse so quickly because that's just the nature of esports, and Rocket League especially, which is a team you have to be practicing constantly. You have to be on fire to stay into it. And I just don't think it is quite there yet, especially when you need the likes of sponsor interest, and when it comes with video games. And video games, they come and go. We've seen many expire, run their course. I mean, Archaon, you were literally talking about earlier, there was an esport you were top 10 in the world in, but then that unfortunately died. What is it actually like being the tournament organizers for a game which, well, theoretically could die in a couple of years, if you do believe that's a possibility, and having just so much of your successes reliant on, you know, if Psyonix or Epic Games or whatever makes a big game changing update. Recently we did have the boost bubbles, which is quite a small thing, but I know some people like to ask for more. And what is it like having that outside pressure that anything could happen to kind of challenge your league's existence?
I mean, it's similar to what we have finding sponsorships. Like,
Mhm.
you've got to create this system for a year-round tournament. Obviously, like RLCS is right now, and we've obviously seen the cuts this year. We saw the setbacks that Psyonix had, an Epic with the cuts and layoffs and system changes, format changes, the complaints about not announcing stuff early. There were reasons for that. Obviously, I'm not going to say much because obviously inside
Mhm.
info, but it's going to improve. But there is a lot of pressure on them to maintain that trust and build it back up again, from the previous 6 months that we've had.
But you, as you mentioned before, are an organization owner. I believe it is Shadow that you own. Is that correct? Yeah, Shadow
Yeah,
Esports. What is it like owning an organization that is centered around Rocket League?
I feel like it is it is an interesting, especially in the franchise format currently, due to players interacting with each other, depending on how open they are to communicating with other teams, because it generates a good dynamic between players playing for the same goal, or not playing for the same goal as well as for their own goals to win their tiers, but also playing to win for the franchise as a whole. It generates a togetherness, especially in the admin area, because you're working together on preparing all those teams for the competition you do. Although we have not been as active, you have to run a social media that to do the team's performance justice. There's a lot of small things going into it as well as some bigger things. Like, for example, getting merch for your organization. It is something also like the league itself, where you work together for a common goal, just to grow as a community and also as not only a brand but a competitor in leagues.
Yeah, from the likes, well, it just sounds like your other job as a owner of a tournament. There's just so many small moving parts that many people don't really think of, and therefore not really appreciate as much. And I always see it. definitely in the general chats as well, and I'm seeing Archaon have to shut down some people, talking about how this or that is such a small thing and could be done so quickly. And then actually in the background, there's already so much other stuff that you're working on. And actually that thing they think is so little isn't as easy as it may seem. But, it's so awesome that you guys can come together and run something so big like what is now going to be just the RSC. And what are your prospects for the future now? Where do you go from here, whether that's in your own individual careers or as representatives of the RSC?
Mutsch, do you want to go first?
Oh, sure. So for me, I would really like to keep the league stable and also growing, because I feel like the system as a whole can benefit so much people, not only on a game skill level, but also like on a personal level, because they are interacting with so many other people. Like I said, generating friendships that last far past the teaming they have done in the league. They can build skill sets depending on which role they take on the staff. And also it could just generate opportunities like that also transform over into IRL. My utopian outlook on this is basically having the league grow so much that we can basically host. I wouldn't want to say an infinite amount of players, but like having a lot of people just experience this may ideally also in other games, and maybe just make a living out of it, just to be able to provide those opportunities to as many people as possible.
And Archeon, how about you? What are your thoughts on yourself individually in the future in esports or just RSC as a whole?
Um, I'm pretty comfortable right now with what we're doing. I do think that people need to look at this season as a transitional period for the leagues.
Mhm.
Obviously, the merge. Yes, we've been merged for a while. However, we are looking to improve. So we're looking at graphical improvements this season, stream improvements, potentially a new video. Um,
Ooh.
like there's stuff in the league that we've had consistent for a couple of seasons, and I think people want to see some change at some point. So obviously we've lost source as well, so we need to look at coding new back like how the stream works for some things like RScast. So I do think there is some transitional aspects this season. So I don't think everything's going to run 100%. I think it'll be a like 90% season. So I think people need to understand that from the start. We need to change the web app as well. We need to reopen the website because the previous admin had the owner of the domain there, so I need to reopen that now it's expired. So it's like these things that have been forced upon us. Like we need to sort those first, and obviously coding the bots and stuff like that to get these changes in place. So it's going to be transitional. I am looking forward to closing out the season because I have really missed it. Like, although I've gone off Rocket League a bit, like because I've been working on my fitness, I've missed having no RSC for 6 months. And I'm just glad Mutz has been able to see the bigger picture, and hopefully, what we can get from this is sustaining ourselves for another couple of years and just getting £1,000 per season for the foreseeable, and just staying at the forefront of grassroots Rocket League. That's all I want. It's something to play. It's something for people to enjoy. I don't want anything else. We've tried to be the feeder league for RLCS. It's not getting there. I don't
True.
know if Epic and Psyonix making any of these partnerships. So we've tried. We've gave away a lot of money, but at the end of the day, when someone wins Premier and leaves the server the day after the win and just collect the money, it's like just going past Go and Monopoly and taking the £200 and then not playing again. It's like why are we throwing money away? So at the end of the day, it's just being sustainable. That's all I want.
And I think this is going to be a podcast which is really going to go out to those that are competing or in any way involved with the ERSC. And I've really appreciated that you two have come on here and been so honest and open, because I do think people in the community will really like that. And we are going to wrap up here. This was the first ever episode of the Behind the Screens podcast brought to you by DSQ. And I don't think we could have asked for a much better start. It's going to be quite hard to top this now. We got ourselves at quite a peak with the first episode, having the two faces of Grassroots Rocket League. But before we close down, I just wanted to ask you to specifically, we'll start with Mutz. Is there anything you want to shout out there as much as you like?
I would say I just want to thank everyone that has made this possible, that has put the trust in us over the years, and also is on board with everything that is to come. Also, with all the people that have helped me in Shadow to keep the franchise going, and especially the last 2 seasons have made it so we have reached quite a high peak with franchise of the season in our RSC and our second in the ERS. Couldn't be happier with what has been happening in the last few months.
And Archaon, anything you want to shout out, whether it's a person or a social?
Yeah, echoing what Mutz has said, pretty much. Also, hopefully people can stop being scared of us. I don't know why people sit there and say, I'm scared of Arch, or I don't want to DM Arch. It's like, I am a really nice guy. It's just if someone does send me that way, it's usually justified. But yeah, don't be so scared of contacting admins. We're not the devil. What else? Thank you to sponsors who have come and gone, especially Real One. That's the peak for me. You say, what do I want from RSC in the future? I don't care. I've had Real One. Do you know what I mean? That's the pinnacle of our sponsorship, and I can't top that. And I've said that for a while now. So thank you to Real One, especially Luna Statics as well, or Luna Organization. They set us up at the start. That's what enabled us to grow so quickly. Is the fact that Steeble put in so much money to help us grow. And all the current sponsors, such as the grassroots orgs that are helping us until we do find a bigger sponsor again. So yeah, thank you to everyone who sponsors and plays or watches our streams. I really appreciate it.
Guys, I can vouch. They're very friendly. Just DM them. They're so nice. Archaon, sometimes he just sits about in a VC. I join. He's lovely. He doesn't, just ramble on about ERS, RSC, how someone's made him crazy. He's a generally quite happy guy. I love him.
As long as people don't ask me questions about RSC at 11 o'clock at night when I'm trying to play Rocket League. Don't do that to admins.
Admins are more than just admins. They are people too. Like I said before,
people seem to forget that often.
They're not robots. They're not robots, except Andre. He's the only admin we can call.
Andre's a bot.
Yeah, and
he is a sentient AI at this point.
Thank you so much for joining us for the first episode of this podcast, and thank you anyone at home who is listening or watching it, and everyone as well who has worked on this in the background. This has been the debut episode of the Behind the Screens podcast, brought to you by DSQ. My name is SirPigasus, and thank you all very, very much.